They handed me a dish towel instead of a place card. My nephew slid his plate over and said, "Mom says you serve, not eat." Laughter snapped around the table like a whip. I stood up, coat over my arm, smile frozen in place. No one stopped me. Not Mom, not Hailey. Not even the nephew I'd spent 3 years putting through private school. Outside, the air bit hard. I sat in my car, towel still in my hand, and opened my banking app. Tuition, mortgage, utilities, every autopay tied to their house, gone in under a minute. "Service ends tonight," I whispered. I wasn't angry. I was awake. You ever realize, all at once, that you were raised to keep giving until there's nothing left? That night felt like someone finally switched the light on. I'm Riley Morgan, 28, paramedic in Denver. I've spent 2 decades being the reliable one. If there was a crisis, Hailey's eviction scare, Mom's furnace bill, the school fundraiser, I paid it, quietly. I told myself it was love. Turns out, it was training. When I walked back into that house earlier, Hailey was already late, of course. She swept in with the designer purse swinging on her arm and kissed Mom's cheek like she was royalty returning from exile. The smell of her perfume hit first, something floral and expensive. I was still folding napkins. "Traffic," she said, smiling just enough to show she wasn't sorry. Mom laughed too loudly. "She works so hard keeping that blog going. You know how it is, Riley? You should post more of your rescues. People love hero stories." I half smiled. "My rescues don't have sponsorship deals." Hailey didn't like that. She adjusted her diamond-shaped earrings and said, "You're welcome, by the way. Evan's teacher said the tuition cleared last week." "Yeah," I said. "I know. I paid it." She blinked, tilted her head like she couldn't hear. "You make it sound like charity." Mom's fork scraped her plate. "We don't need to turn this into drama, Riley. It's Christmas." That's the thing about my family. Gratitude is quiet, but entitlement shouts. Dinner went on. Roast beef, red wine, laughter that missed me entirely. The towel showed up after dessert, folded neat beside my chair, like a reminder of where I belonged. Have you ever sat through a meal knowing you're only there out of habit? You can feel it, the way people talk around you, not to you. Every pass the gravy sounds like stay in your lane. When I reached the door, Mom said softly, "Don't make a scene." I said, "That's your specialty." Snow was falling sideways by the time I reached my car. The towel was still warm from my hands, like it had absorbed every small humiliation I'd ignored for years. I pressed it against the steering wheel, watched the porch lights blur through the windshield, and thought of all the times I'd said yes when I wanted to say no. $47,000. That's what I'd spent in 3 years keeping my sister's world spinning. Evan's tuition, their electric bills, even the down payment on the Range Rover she leases but can't maintain. You tell yourself family debt isn't real because love covers it, but love doesn't come with receipts until you stop paying. I drove home in silence, the towel on the passenger seat. My phone buzzed once, faint against the console. A new email from Evan's school. Payment declined. Please confirm. I stared at it for a full minute. My thumb hovered over reply, then dropped back to my lap. Who canceled the transfer? And why did that question suddenly feel like the start of something I should have seen coming all along? The phone lit up before dawn, the glow cutting through the dark room like a searchlight. Mom, how dare you ruin Christmas? Hailey, he's 9, you monster. Do you even have a heart? Mom again, don't forget who raised you. Each text landed with the same sting, a bill marked past due. I lay still for a moment, screen against my chest, heartbeat sinking to the vibration. The silence between buzzes was worse than the words. It's funny. When your family turns on you, It doesn't sound like betrayal at first. It sounds like routine. The next ping flashed across the screen. A new number. No name. Check your email. Half awake, I opened my inbox. The subject line read, "You should see this." Attached were screenshots from a group chat, our family's private one, Hailey's name in bold blue. Riley's still useful. Let's see how long she plays Maid. Mom's reply, a laughing emoji. I stared at it until the words blurred. You know that feeling when your stomach drops, but your body doesn't move yet? Like the betrayal has to travel through your nerves before it reaches your face. I sat up, the cold air biting my skin. My thumb moved on instinct. Bank app, autopay tab, confirmation screens. Electric, mortgage, tuition, gone. Each deletion hit like a match being struck. If you've ever spent your life cleaning up other people's messes, you'll know that silence after you finally stop. It's not peace, it's shock. The phone started ringing again. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then the text tone came, same number. Riley, it's me. We need to talk before this goes further. I froze. Dad. The same man who hadn't called in months. The one who'd missed Evan's last 2 birthdays, skipped every family dinner since the argument about boundaries. Now suddenly, we need to talk. I replayed the voicemail. His voice was lower, heavier. Riley, it's Dad. Don't hang up when I call back. We have to get ahead of this before it turns ugly. Before it turns ugly. Like it wasn't already? You ever notice how the people who cause the fire always sound surprised when it spreads? I stood, phone in one hand, the towel still folded on the counter from last night. The print from my fingers looked like stains. Maybe they were. Messages kept coming. Hailey again. You're sick. You need help. Mom. Your father won't protect you this time. The words didn't make me angry. They just rearranged everything I thought I knew. For years, I'd been their safety net. Now they were cutting the ropes. I opened the curtains. Snow piled against the windowsill, soft and clean, like it had never seen the mess inside this house. My reflection looked like someone else. Tired eyes, clenched jaw, hair unbrushed but steady. Maybe this is what waking up really means. It's not dramatic. It's just quiet recognition that something's broken beyond repair. The phone rang again. I let it ring. Then I answered. Riley. Dad said. The line crackled. I just saw the messages. We need to meet. There's more you don't know. My voice came out even. Like what? Not on the phone. The call ended before I could reply. I stared at the towel on the counter, then at my phone. Somewhere between the two sat a version of me that used to believe family always meant safe. The screen buzzed again. New voicemail alert. I pressed play. Riley, it's me. We need to talk before this goes further. Why was my father calling now? After all this time? After months of silence? By morning, my apartment felt like a command center. Printer humming, phone buzzing, coffee gone cold on the counter. I printed every text and screenshot, stamped each page with the time, and emailed copies to myself. Evidence first, emotion later. That's how you survive in both emergencies and families. 3 cups of coffee. 0 sleep. My hands trembled only when they stopped moving. At 7:42 a.m., I walked into the paramedic station early. The place smelled of antiseptic and burnt toast, the kind of air that wakes you before caffeine does. My shift partner looked up from his mug. Rough night? Something like that. Between calls, I pulled HR aside. I need to report potential online defamation from a family member. Just so you're aware if it spreads. Her brow furrowed. Family? You mean someone outside work? Yes, for now. You ever have to say a sentence that makes you realize how absurd your life has become? That was mine. After the meeting, I booked a quick consult with a lawyer I'd found through the union. 15 minutes on speakerphone while I sat in my car. She talked fast, precise. If it escalates, document everything. Don't engage online. Digital harassment leaves trails. Use them. Understood. The city outside blurred by in sirens and headlights. I was supposed to be saving lives, not defending mine. By afternoon, exhaustion hit like gravity. I set my phone face down, hoping silence could reset something. It didn't. The vibration came anyway. Notification: Hailey Morgan has posted a new update. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. Her words appeared in perfect calm font. As a concerned aunt, I'm worried about Riley's behavior around children. It raises serious questions. No names, no tags, just public enough for people to connect the dots. I felt the world tilt. My job, my license, relies on trust. All it takes is one rumor, one parent doubting your judgment, and you're done. The comment count started climbing. Neighbors, old classmates. Even one of my coworkers liked the post before realizing what it implied. Hailey always knew how to wound without leaving fingerprints. I typed, then deleted, then typed again. The lawyer's voice replayed in my head. Don't engage. So I didn't. I just watched. You ever see your reputation start to slip through people's hands and you can't grab it back? It's quiet at first, then it's loud enough to fill a room. The noise online bled into my day. Dispatch radio chatter, coffee machines, door alarms, everything layered over her voice in my head. Concerned aunt. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by printouts and half-empty mugs. The city hummed outside, muffled and uncaring. I tried to eat, but every bite tasted like metal. The printer light blinked again, one more page sliding out. A copy of the Facebook post, time-stamped, archived, proof that my life was becoming a case file. Then, just as I started to stack the papers, another notification appeared at the top of my screen. No sound, just the subject line bolded, official, impossible to ignore. Something in me went still. The kind of still that comes before a siren starts. Whatever it was, it didn't look like family anymore. It looked like fallout. The doorbell rang just as the streetlights flickered on. I wasn't expecting anyone. The night was quiet, except for the steady hum of the heater and the faint hiss of snow against the windows. Through the peephole, my father. Coat dusted white, breath fogging the porch light. For a moment, he looked older, smaller. But when I opened the door, his eyes were sharp, calculating, not tired. Can I come in? I stepped aside. You already are. He crossed the threshold without waiting for warmth, shook the snow from his sleeves, and placed a thin folder on my kitchen table. The same table I'd sat at last night, counting the cost of peace. We didn't hug. We hadn't in years. He took off his gloves carefully, one finger at a time, like the motion steadied him. You've had quite a week, he said. You saw the posts? I saw enough. You ever meet someone's eyes and realize they've been fighting a different battle all along? That's what it felt like. He opened the folder and turned it toward me. Bank statements. My name, my account number, but transfers I never made. Lines highlighted in yellow, each one leading back to the same place. Hailey and Mom's joint account. My throat tightened. She's been using my credentials. He nodded once. And it gets worse. He flipped another page. The next document looked official. Heavy paper, embossed seal, notary stamp in red. Across the top, emergency fund, $230,000. Beneficiary, Riley Morgan. sole backup trustee. My breath caught. You set this up? He nodded again. After your mother's second refinance, I knew she'd drain herself trying to prop up Hailey's lifestyle. This was supposed to be safe. Supposed to be? He leaned back, exhaling slow. Hailey's attorney just filed a financial elder abuse claim against you. I laughed once, dry and empty. For money I didn't even touch? For money she's been taking in your name, he said. The room went quiet. Only the sound of snow melting off his coat filled the space. Dad? I said. Why are you here now? He didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted to the towel still folded on the counter. Because this time, it's not just family drama, it's a crime. He slid the folder closer, the paper edges catching the light. Tomorrow, we end this. Something in his tone made me believe him until I remembered every time he'd gone silent before. The dinners he skipped, the arguments he ignored, the way he'd always said, keep the peace like it was a prayer. You're really going to confront them? I asked. He met my eyes. If I don't now, there won't be anything left worth saving. The heater clicked off, and the room fell into that kind of silence that makes you hear your own heartbeat. I stared at the folder, the numbers, the proof that my sister hadn't just used me, she'd stolen the life I'd been building. Dad stood, adjusted his scarf, and paused at the door. Lock up. They won't take this quietly. Then he was gone, leaving wet footprints across the floor. I closed the door behind him, leaned against it, and tried to breathe. Snow kept falling outside, soft but relentless. I'd spent years cleaning their messes. Tomorrow, I'd see what it felt like to stop. Still, one thought lingered like static in my chest. Was my father finally ready to stand against his own wife and daughter? Or was this just another promise waiting to break? The dining room looked exactly the same as every holiday before it. Same oak table, same chipped candlesticks, same faint smell of lemon polish, but this time there was no laughter. Only the sound of my boots on tile and the dull thud of the binder I dropped onto the table. No one spoke. Paper edges fanned out like evidence waiting for oxygen. Dad stood at the head of the table, coat still on, posture straight. Mom sat near the end, hands folded tight, knuckles pale. Hailey scrolled her phone with the kind of calm people use when they think they're still winning. I didn't sit. I just watched. Dad cleared his throat and opened the folder he'd brought. Before we begin, he said, I'm reading something drafted by counsel. His voice didn't shake. Any further defamation or workplace interference will result in formal legal action. Each word hit the air like a hammer. Hailey laughed under her breath. You think that scares me? I'll tell the court Riley accessed Evan's school records without my consent. I felt the blood rise, hot and quick. You forged my signature, Hailey. Her smile sharpened. You can't prove that. Dad didn't flinch. Actually, he said, sliding a page free. We can. The binder opened to a photo, her handwriting side by side with mine. Below it, the notary stamp. The match was perfect. Too perfect. Hailey's grin faltered. That doesn't mean... It means you used your sister's name to move money she didn't authorize, he said. And your mother signed off. Mom's head jerked up. What? He pushed the binder toward her. Your initials, right there. Every transfer, every approval. Her lips parted, then closed again. The room tightened around her silence. You ever watch truth move through a family like a slow earthquake? Nobody screams at first. They just try to hold on to something solid. Mom's voice finally cracked. I didn't know she'd... Yes, you did, Dad said quietly. You just didn't want to see it. Hailey slammed her hand on the table. You're taking her side again? You've always done this. I make one mistake, and suddenly I'm the villain? One? I said. You've built a career out of crises, Hailey. The only difference this time is someone kept the receipts. She turned to Mom. You're really going to let him talk to me like that? Mom's eyes darted between us, desperate for a way out. We can fix this privately. Dad shook his head. It's not private anymore. Your daughter filed a false legal claim. That's public record. The words landed heavier than the binder ever could. Hailey's jaw trembled, then stiffened. You'll regret this. Dad straightened. No, I regret waiting this long. The heater kicked on, a hollow sound filling the pause none of us could. I looked at the table, at the scratches worn into the wood from decades of family meals, and wondered if any of it could ever feel clean again. For a second, Hailey's bravado slipped. She looked small, cornered, eyes darting toward the door like escape might still exist. Dad gathered the papers, slid them back into the folder, and said, If you're smart, you'll stop here. Hailey didn't answer. She just stared at me, unblinking, like I'd stolen something she thought she owned. Control. When I turned to leave, her voice followed, thin and shaking. You really want to take this to court? I didn't look back. If that's what it takes to stop the bleeding. Still, part of me knew she wasn't the type to surrender. The question hanging in the cold air was simple, sharp, and real. Would Hailey actually face a courtroom, or just try to burn everything down first? The call came just after noon, crisp and professional. Unknown number, but I already knew who it was. Ms. Morgan, a smooth voice said. This is Attorney Davis, representing your sister. I trust you're aware of the situation. I leaned back in my chair. That depends which situation we're pretending to fix today. A polite pause, practiced for negotiation. Hailey would like to resolve this without escalation. If you sign a non-disclosure agreement and agree to cover her legal fees, we can consider the matter closed. I laughed once, short and dry. Tell her no. Tell her we're done. Ms. Morgan, refusing mediation? Save it. She started this in public. She can finish it there. Click. Call ended. Silence hummed through the room, interrupted only by the buzz of my phone as notifications started piling up again. The noise of it all, the posts, the whispers, the half-truths, had turned into a kind of static I could almost live with. You ever reach that point where exhaustion becomes clarity? That's where I was. I walked outside, boots crunching through thin snow, and tried to remember the last time peace didn't feel like something I had to earn. The sky was flat gray, no warmth, no promise, just stillness. Back inside, I poured coffee and opened my laptop. First headline on my feed wasn't from a news outlet, but it might as well have been. Parentforum.net. Public notice. User Hailey P. suspended permanently for defamatory content. Screenshots archived, no names, no context. Just the truth wearing a polite disguise. I stared at it for a long moment. The post didn't need to say who she was. Everyone already knew. Denver's parent groups were small ecosystems. Rumor spreads faster than weather alerts. Part of me wanted to feel relief, but it didn't land that way. It just felt like debris settling after an explosion. I closed the laptop and let the quiet stretch. Then my phone buzzed again. Hailey, live on Facebook. I told myself not to look, but I did. She was crying, mascara streaking down her cheeks, the same voice that once asked me to cover her rent now breaking in practiced tremors. I'm being attacked, she said to the camera. My family is trying to ruin my life. You don't know what it's like to be betrayed by your own blood. Thousands of comments flooded in, Sympathy, outrage, emojis of prayer hands and red hearts. She knew how to play her audience. Then her camera slipped, just a second too far. Behind her, on the wall, a new whiteboard came into view. At the top, written in bright marker, Evan's private tutor schedule. Every time slot filled, every address visible. She didn't even realize what she'd shown. I exhaled, slow. "You just buried yourself," I whispered. Within minutes, the comments shifted tone. Someone recognized the street name. Another tagged the school. Concern replaced sympathy. The video cut off mid-sentence. You know that moment when someone's lies start unraveling, not with a bang, but with gravity? That's what it felt like. Inevitable. I shut my phone off and let it face down on the counter. The towel from Christmas still hung by the sink, faded and clean now. Part of me wanted to call Dad. The rest of me knew there was no need. Truth was already doing the work. But the question sat heavy anyway. Quiet and persistent. How many lies would unravel before someone finally stopped her? Dad watched the live stream from his study, the room half lit by the glow of the monitor. Snow pressed against the windows, muting everything but the faint sound of Hailey's voice coming through the speakers. Her face filled the screen, blotchy, tearful, playing the victim like it was muscle memory. He didn't blink, just reached for the phone on his desk. "Mitchell," he said when the lawyer answered. "Freeze her discretionary account. Effective immediately." No anger, no hesitation. Just a tone that said he'd finally stopped being afraid of the noise. Across town, I sat in my apartment watching the same feed. Heart steady for the first time in weeks. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. Hailey kept talking, weaving half-truths into a performance that didn't need an audience, except she had one. Mom sat just off camera, posture rigid, lips pressed thin. For a second, she looked older than I'd ever seen her. Then, without warning, she spoke. Her voice carried through the mic, small but clear. "Hailey," she said, "stop lying." The comment section froze. Even Hailey did. Mom took a breath, eyes glassy but resolute. "I told Evan to say it," she whispered. The serve, not eat line. It wasn't him. The air left the room. Even through the screen, you could feel it. Hailey blinked fast. "What are you talking about?" Mom kept going, words shaking loose years of denial. "You wanted her humiliated, and I went along with it, because she wouldn't co-sign your loan." It hit me like a second winter. 2 months earlier, Hailey had cornered me after a shift. "Just sign the papers," she'd said. "It's a Range Rover, not a rocket." I told her no. She'd smiled, but her eyes had gone dark. I should have known that look meant revenge was coming. Hailey's live stream cracked open in real time. Comments flooded in, screenshots, links, side-by-side photos. The story she'd been controlling was suddenly writing itself without her. Dad ended the call with the lawyer, then picked up another phone. "Riley," he said when I answered, "don't react to anything you see online. It's already in motion." "What is?" He exhaled. "The hearing?" Outside Hailey's house, a black sedan slowed to a stop. The camera on her live stream caught it by accident. Just a glimpse of headlights across the snow. A man stepped out, envelope in hand. Knock, knock, knock. Hailey froze mid-sentence. "Hold on," she muttered to her viewers, walking off screen. The door opened, muffled voices exchanged, then the sound of paper tearing free from its seal. When she came back into frame, her face was pale. "They're saying there's a hearing?" she stammered. "Preliminary injunction? What does that even mean?" Mom stood behind her, eyes wide. "It means they're serious," she said quietly. The stream cut off. I sat staring at the black screen, the reflection of my own face staring back. I thought I'd feel vindicated, but what came instead was something quieter. Closure, maybe. Or fatigue, wearing honesty's clothes. My phone buzzed again. Chat replay from the stream. I scrolled until one comment stopped me cold. That's the resort we couldn't afford for the school trip? Evan's teacher. I replayed the video in my head. The whiteboard, the background, the view outside her window. Of course. The tutor schedule wasn't in her house. It was a resort. The one Evan's class fundraiser couldn't cover. The lie had grown legs, and now everyone could see where it lived. What happens when the truth finally goes public? Weeks passed quietly, the kind of silence that feels earned. The snow melted, the headlines faded, and for the first time in months, my phone didn't vibrate with crisis. Denver thawed one street at a time. Hailey's posts disappeared without a word. One day, they were there, stacked like digital monuments to her outrage. The next, gone, vanished under the weight of a cease and desist drafted in plain, surgical language. I didn't celebrate. Just saved the screenshot that said, "Content unavailable." That was enough. Evan transferred schools. The new one was smaller, calmer, free from the gossip that had followed him through the last semester. His teacher emailed once. He's curious, reads ahead, always asks if people get second chances. I didn't answer right away. Some questions deserve space to breathe. Dad and I met at the same lawyer's office where this had all started. He looked older, but lighter, like someone who'd finally stopped holding a burning match. The papers in front of us were clean. No forgeries, no crossed out lines. New trust agreement, Evan Michael Parker. Co-trustees, Riley Morgan and Daniel Morgan. Untouchable until Evan turned 18. Dad slid a pen across the table. This time, no one rewrites the terms. I signed. My name felt steady for the first time in years. Outside, we stood in the parking lot, snow turning to slush around our boots. He said, "You did what I should have done years ago?" "You mean stop cleaning up their mess?" He nodded. "No, start setting limits." We didn't hug, but it didn't feel cold anymore. At home, I packed the binder away. Each page slid into its sleeve like a chapter closing. Evidence that once felt like armor now just looked like paper. Proof mattered, but peace weighed less. I started working overtime again, not for distraction, but because helping strangers felt cleaner than repairing family. One morning, a mother hugged me outside the ambulance bay after we stabilized her son. She whispered, "You must have a big heart." I smiled. Just better boundaries. That weekend, I cleaned the apartment top to bottom. No boxes marked emergency fund, no printed screenshots taped to the wall. Only light, coffee, and a stack of new library books waiting by the couch. The towel still hung by the sink. I'd washed it a dozen times, but the crease from that night never fully faded. I left it there on purpose. Not as a relic, just as proof that even humiliation can turn into clarity if you let it. You ever notice how healing doesn't come with fanfare? It just sneaks in between grocery lists and quiet mornings when no one's yelling your name. One afternoon, an email notification blinked across the screen. From Evan M. subject line, books. Inside, just one sentence. "Aunt Riley, can I still email you about books?" I read it twice before replying. "Always, but I'm Riley now, not your ATM." He wrote back a smile emoji, then a picture of the book we used to read together, creases on every corner, still his handwriting on the inside cover. "To Aunt Riley, because you make boring things safe." I closed the laptop, leaned back, and let the quiet settle in. Hailey didn't call again. Mom tried once, through a long, vague voicemail about starting fresh. I listened halfway, then deleted it. Some relationships don't need closure, they just need distance. Dad started volunteering at a local financial literacy group, teaching retired teachers how to spot fraud. He joked, "Your mother would have hated this." I said, "Then you're doing it right." There was no big reconciliation, no teary apology scene, just the slow, steady rhythm of people rebuilding their own corners of the world. Sometimes, late at night, I'd catch myself scrolling back through old photos, birthdays, graduations, that family vacation where Hailey wore the same smile she'd later weaponize. But even then, the memories didn't sting. They just existed, like fossils. Proof of a family that once believed proximity meant love. I started running again, early mornings before work. The city felt different when you weren't walking through it on autopilot. The same streets where I'd once rehearsed explanations now just held air and sunrise. People say forgiveness is about the other person. I think it's mostly about reclaiming your bandwidth. I stopped wishing for apologies from people allergic to accountability. Instead, I learned to wish myself quieter mornings and meals that didn't taste like resentment. Evan's teacher emailed again near the end of the term. He's writing an essay about bravery. Said it means doing what's right even if your family hates you for it. I sat there a long time before replying, then typed, "He's not wrong." That night, I stood in the kitchen, lights low, towel in hand. The fabric was thin now, frayed at the corners. But it held, like me. I thought about all the moments that had led here, the laughter that wasn't kind, the silence that wasn't peace, the family that called generosity loyalty and guilt love. And I thought about the moment I'd stood up from that table, coat in one hand, towel in the other, deciding that my worth wasn't measured in how many fires I could put out. People talk about rock bottom like it's one place. It's not. It's a series of small realizations you can't unsee, each one a step out of the dark. So I kept the dish towel. Not as a reminder of pain, but as proof. Proof that I walked away the moment I stopped being a person and became a service. And proof that sometimes the cleanest break isn't violent. It's quiet, deliberate, and final. When people ask what happened to my family, I tell them the truth in 5 words. I stopped being useful first. Then I smile, because usefulness fades. But self-respect, that's renewable.